Hey there, comic fans! Welcome back to Comic Yahud. Today we're diving into last chapter of Tintin and the King Ottokar scepter. Let's get started. Tintin confidently approaches, revealing that he has the scepter in his possession, much to the king's relief. The room fills with joy and gratitude as the king exclaims that they are saved. Tintin stands amidst a group of officials, his face a mask of shock as he realizes the scepter has slipped from his grasp. The king's relief turns to confusion, and the room buzzes with disbelief at this unexpected twist. Outside, Snowy sprints determinedly, the scepter clutched securely in his mouth, grateful for having spotted it fall from Tintin's pocket. His quick thinking and bravery shine through the darkness as he races to save the day. Snowy paused on the dirt path, his eyes lighting up at the sight of a bone lying in the road. Forgetting the chase for a moment, he sniffed eagerly at his discovery, tail wagging with delight. Snowy happily picked up the bone, leaving the scepter forgotten on the ground. But in his mind's eye, the looming shadow of an angry Tintin made him freeze, guilt tugging at his little conscience. Snowy stopped in his tracks, glancing from the tempting bone to the scepter lying beside it. His ears twitched as he weighed the choice, torn between desire and duty. At last, Snowy gave the bone a reluctant glance before leaving it behind. Gripping the scepter firmly, he trotted on with determination, intent on reaching Tintin without delay. As Snowy dashes into the room with the scepter, Tintin and the officials burst into joyous laughter, their previously tense expressions melting away. The king's face lights up with happiness, grateful for Snowy's heroic act, as the scepter is finally back in safe hands. With the scepter finally secure, the king exclaimed his relief, but Tintin cut in urgently, hinting at another discovery. Meanwhile, Snowy let out a weary sigh, his thoughts drifting longingly back to the bone he had left behind. Tintin shares documents he found on some ruffians, revealing a plot for power signed by the ominous leader, Müssstler. The room fills with alarm as the captain reads the incriminating evidence, realizing the threat posed by the Iron Guard. The king urgently commands the arrest of Müssstler and his associates, his voice firm and decisive. An official responds promptly, acknowledging the order with a determined nod. The king announces a change in strategy, instructing the general to position the army at key locations by morning to thwart the rebels' plans. The general responds with readiness, eager to carry out the decisive orders. As dawn approaches, a rooster crows loudly, signaling the start of a new day filled with hope and anticipation. The peaceful morning contrasts with the night's intense preparations, heralding the unfolding of the king's plan. A sudden loud boom rang out, startling the rooster into flapping its wings in alarm. Its crow broke off sharply, echoing across the landscape as the morning calm was shattered. Inside a grand bedroom, Tintin is startled awake by what he perceives as gunfire, his heart pounding in his chest. Snowy, equally alarmed, sits up beside him, ears perked as they both try to make sense of the sudden noise. As a knock sounds at the door, Tintin, now fully alert, calls out for the visitor to enter. Tintin, still in his pajamas, is greeted by Thompson and Thompson, who enter the room. Snowy watches as Tintin questions the detectives about the loud firing he just heard. One of the detectives explains that the firing is a salute for St. Vladimir's Day and urges Tintin to dress quickly to avoid missing the procession. Tintin listens intently, realizing the importance of the day's events as he prepares to join the celebration. As the royal carriage departs the palace, the king, holding the Sceptre of Ottokar, is met with cheers from the crowd. His Majesty's presence is celebrated with a magnificent roar of welcome that only fades with the rise of the national anthem. As the king's ornate carriage proceeds through the bustling streets, the crowd's excitement reaches a crescendo, with flags waving and voices cheering in unison. The royal guards, resplendent in their uniforms, lead the procession, their presence adding to the grandeur of the moment. Returning to the palace, the king is greeted by another wave of adoration, the crowd's enthusiasm undimmed by time. Inside the opulent throne room, an investiture ceremony unfolds, with Tintin and Snowy approaching amidst the gathered nobility, their eyes fixed on the regal proceedings. The king addresses the gathered crowd, announcing that Tintin is to receive the Order of the Golden Pelican, a rare honor that has never before been given to a foreigner. Tintin stands humbly, his expression a mixture of surprise and gratitude as the significance of the award sinks in. As the king places the medal around Tintin's neck, the words, "Tintin, Knight of the Order of the Golden Pelican," resonate through the hall. Tintin's heart swells with pride, aware of the deep appreciation for his services to the country. The room erupts in cheers, with jubilant cries of "Hurrah!" as the crowd waves their hats and canes in celebration of Tintin's honor. The atmosphere is filled with admiration and excitement, faces beaming with joy. Amidst the celebration, the grandeur of the chandelier captures attention as two canes accidentally pull it from below. It sways precariously, its crystal ornaments shimmering under the light, creating a moment of sudden tension. The chandelier crashes to the floor, scattering crystals across the room, leaving the elegant guests momentarily stunned. Conversations pause as eyes turn to the wreckage, and a murmur of disbelief ripples through the crowd. Some days after the grand ceremony, Tintin finds himself at the Ministry of the Interior, the door marked with an official plaque that hints at important matters within. The silence in the hallway contrasts sharply with the recent jubilations, as Tintin prepares to learn more about the events that have unfolded. Inside, an official addresses Tintin, explaining that Müssstler and his followers, under the guise of the Iron Guard, were actually plotting a coup to dethrone the king and annex the country. Tintin listens intently, realizing the depth of the conspiracy that had threatened the kingdom. The official reveals that Professor Alembic was also apprehended at Müssstler's hideout, having sought refuge there after stealing the scepter. Tintin is handed a small book found on Alembic, its contents potentially holding secrets to further unravel the plot. Tintin examines a page in the book featuring a photograph and notes about an ambassador named Igor Stasinov, who is described as a very close friend of Alembic. The notes mention their meeting in Belgrade in 1913, adding a layer of historical connection to the unfolding plot. Turning the page, Tintin discovers notes about a Siladavian secret agent named Kavrovich, with a warning to be wary of him. The words "liquidated" underline the gravity of the situation, hinting at the agent's dangerous activities. Tintin suddenly recognizes a familiar face, realizing it's the man who collapsed in his room, exclaiming in surprise as he spots his own photograph. This revelation startles him, adding a personal dimension to the mystery he's unraveling. Tintin examines a note with a photograph of him on a staircase, the words, "Don't trust him," scrawled ominously beside it. In a room filled with tension, Tintin questions the purpose of the notebook while the official explains it was to track visitors to the real Professor Alembic. Handing over another photograph found at Müssstler's house, the official suggests it holds a crucial piece of the puzzle. The photograph reveals two identical elderly men, their resemblance striking, standing in a garden setting, adding another twist to the unfolding intrigue. The names, Hector and Alfred, along with a date inscribed below. As Tintin stares at the photograph, he exclaims about the existence of twins, pondering the fate of the real Professor Alembic. The official, engrossed in the London newspaper, reads aloud about the discovery of Alembic, who had been imprisoned and kidnapped before his departure, shedding light on the professor's mysterious disappearance. Tintin sits back in realization, piecing together the oddities he had noticed, the shouts on the phone and the absence of the professor's usual glasses and smoking habits. These details now fit perfectly into the puzzle, illuminating the deception that had unfolded before his eyes. Meanwhile, at the Bordurian military headquarters, a commanding officer addresses his men, announcing the withdrawal of troops to demonstrate peaceful intentions. Despite the tensions with the Slidavians, the order to pull back 15 miles from the frontier suggests a strategic move amidst the diplomatic strain. The next day, a radio broadcast announces that Tintin, Thompson, and Thompson were received by the king in a private audience before leaving Sildavia. Their journey continues as they head to Doma to board a flying boat bound for Southampton. As the group approaches the flying boat on a small motorboat, the majestic aircraft floats on the serene waters, ready to carry them away from Sildavia. Tintin and his companions, including Snowy, prepare for their departure, each lost in their thoughts about the adventure they've experienced. The flying boat begins to taxi across the water, its engines roaring to life as it gains speed for takeoff. Leaving behind the picturesque landscape of Sildavia, Tintin reflects on the twists and turns of their recent escapades, uncertain of what awaits them next. The flying boat ascends gracefully, its engines humming steadily as it soars over the sparkling waters. Tintin gazes out the window, taking in the stunning view as they leave Sildavia behind. Some hours later, Thompson checks his watch and announces to his twin brother that it is 6:10, signaling their imminent arrival. The anticipation of landing fills the cabin as they prepare for the next leg of their journey. The flying boat begins its descent, curving gracefully through the sky as it approaches the coastline. The journey continues, and the companions brace themselves for the next chapter of their adventure. Thompson and Thompson, both clutching their canes, are startled as they peer out the window of the plane, realizing something unforeseen is happening. Their expressions of shock are mirrored by Tintin, who looks on with concern from his seat. Both detectives glance at each other in alarm, one blurting out, "Goodness, what on earth's happening?" The other, gripping his cane tightly, replies with dread, "We're falling into the sea." Tintin quickly reassures them that they're not falling but landing, reminding them that they're on a flying boat. His explanation brings a wave of relief, though the detectives still seem bewildered by the sudden turn of events. As the tension eases, Thompson and Thompson share a hearty laugh, realizing their earlier panic was unwarranted. Tintin joins in, amused by their light-hearted banter, as the detectives admit they had completely forgotten about the nature of the flying boat. The flying boat continues to skim gracefully across the water, its engines humming with power. The ocean sparkles under the sun, creating a serene backdrop as the aircraft prepares to take off once more. Back inside, Thompson and Thompson, still chuckling, comment on their own absent-mindedness with a mix of embarrassment and amusement. Their jovial exchange adds a touch of humor to the journey as the plane resumes its flight. Thompson and Thompson, still chuckling at their earlier panic, step out of the cabin with broad smiles, teasing each other about their mistaken fear of falling into the sea. Their laughter echoes as they continue to jest about their misunderstanding, adding a light-hearted moment to their journey. Suddenly, as they make their way outside, they lose their footing and plunge into the water below with a splash. The pilot, watching the unexpected tumble from the cockpit, looks on in surprise as their hats float away. As the plane floats on the water, the crew quickly springs into action, tossing a lifebuoy towards the floundering detectives. Tintin stands at the door, trying to suppress a grin as he watches his drenched friends struggle to regain their composure, their earlier jokes now a distant memory. And that wraps up this adventure. If you enjoyed the story, head to the next story and be sure to like and subscribe for more adventures on Comic Yahud.